So, if you can't tell by looking at me, I love Steven Universe. I think it's great. It's a show about physically large creatures who are bigoted and oppressive and who think other creatures are less than them. They are racist and homophobic, and I love it. It's great. They are genocidal, just all around bad dudes, and it's a fantastic show. The Dark Crystal is a show about physically large, oppressive, genocidal, all around bad dudes, and I'm here for it. Another show, Carnival Row, about an oppressed people, the powerful people oppressing them, who are all around pretty bad dudes. And for some reason, Carnival Row just did not work. So I've been really curious lately about why I haven't heard anything about it. Because I saw the trailers. I think we all saw the trailers. It was decently advertised for. Like I knew it existed. And I was thinking it would be pretty successful. I was wrong. And I watched the first episode of the show to, I guess, prove that to myself. I don't know. I watched the first episode of the show and it was bad. Like, that's the point here. So, I kind of want to go through the checklist of things that make for a good, like, super liberal TV show and demonstrate how Carnival Row checks 0% of these boxes. Box number 1. The oppressor needs to be physically stronger than the oppressed. In Steven Universe, the diamonds are big, 2 of them have mind control powers, 1 of them has an army, I guess, somewhere, like she has military strength. They're physically gigantic, and the gems demonstrably have no chance against them. They can only be reasoned with. I guess. Doesn't matter. There are threats. They are a threat. There are stakes. I promise I can speak. So, in the Dark Crystal, the Skeksis are big. I think they're big even compared to like a normal person. These guys are like 6 feet tall in real life. Because they exist in the wild. No, they're big. And the Gelfling are small and weak. And this is demonstrated at several points in the show. Notably when Gelfling are being just brutally, horribly, slowly murdered on screen. I don't know why it got a PG rating. Probably because it didn't have any boobs in it. There are no stakes in Carnival Row. The Fae can fly, which in the opening scene we see Fae running from giant hyenas that can murder them and intend to murder them. And we see several Fae just get brutally murdered, and it's fine, because the whole time you can see their god-awful wings, and you're like, why aren't you flying? Are the wings fake? The wings look fake. You should demonstrate to me that the wings aren't fake. Maybe their takeoff is slow. Maybe they can only glide. Like, both of these things are reasonable. And neither of them are true. At the end of the scene, one of the Fae just freaking zooms off into the distance. She just is like, I don't want to die. I'm gonna fly now. And then she does exactly that. So all of the other all of the other Fae that are dead wanted to die. Is my conclusion that I can draw from that, because they can fly, and they didn't. They wanted to die, which is more relatable than anything else in this show. Box number 2. The acting is really bad. The dialogue is not convincing. That's the whole box number 2. Point number 3 is that the writers think we're stupid and have never talked to, like, anybody over the age of 18 and under the age of 45. I've seen other shows do this, but this one was just so bad. Like, Inspector Orlando Bloom is talking to the victim of a hate crime, and she's, like, brutally beaten. It's real bad, and he's trying to be sensitive about it, and she's all like, oh, the man who attacked me, he had a shaved head, and he had a tattoo, and he also was wearing a uniform, and immediately my mind went to like Lord Voldemort. Like, she was attacked by Lord Voldemort, and we've been lied to. This is about Harry Potter. This is just Harry Potter, and I was really excited, and I took a little bit of like a mind trip. Like, oh my goodness, it's the Wizarding World, but it's Fairyland now. It's like Cars, how Cars had that spin-off called Planes. This is gonna be like Harry Potter, but the spin-off is Carnival Row. Then I paused the show and turned to the person I was watching it with, because we understood that like it was just Nazis, but I don't think the show had to like spell out to the audience that this was a Nazi fascist. Like, Nazi fascist characters are kind of easy to spell out through their actions. Like, it's not hard to write a character that acts like a fascist Nazi cartoon character. It's not a very like nuanced personality, I think. They have a very like one-dimensional view of the world. They don't need to check every box. Jesus Christ. Oh my god. And like, the police officers are clearly Nazi fascists, and I feel like if you're gonna have a show with bad guy police officers, again, it doesn't need to be spelled out to us. It's not hard to convince an audience that your police force is evil. Especially right now. They think we're stupid. But that's the show. Like, that's point number 3. Checkbox number 3B. They think that we're stupid, and so in order for us to get that, like, this is about us, guys, there has to be like a 1-to-1 ratio of things in the show that are analogous to things like us. Like, do we have a weird president? Weird being an understatement? Yes, they have to have a horrible, irritating, loud, bigoted president. Do we have horrible, derogatory slurs for our minorities? Yes! They call fairies the Picts. They call them the Picts. And that's actually something that I don't have that much of a problem with. Like, I think Pix is a word that sounds really mean, and I think it's almost cute. I'm gonna start calling people Pix. I'm gonna be problematic. They have people being racist to them on the streets. They have a Pix who's a sex worker, which is kind of iffy, I think. I don't know where to feel on that one. Oh god, no, not where. I don't know how to feel about that. I don't know how to feel about that. They have a white savior. I'm so sorry, Inspector Orlando Bloom, but they have a white savior, and we have a lot of those. We have a lot of white savior complexes too. And it just feels like overly overt spelling out to us about how we're supposed to feel about this. And this is also a problem in The Handmaid's Tale, which I will get into later, and I also only saw one episode of that show because I'm impatient and have very low tolerance for things that aren't involving puppets. Oh, also, they have people they have like people of oppressed groups oppressing other oppressed groups, which I think is the only nuanced take this whole show has. Like, they have a goat lady who's like, meh. She's like, meh, don't ruin this job opportunity for me. I've been a servant for this family and they put a roof over my head. Don't be a dumb Pix in this household. And yeah, like, I think oppressed people fighting with other oppressed people is kind of not a hot take, but it's certainly a lot more nuanced than anything else in the show. And I think that that's the one thing that they actually sort of did right, and it was like 3 seconds of runtime in too many seconds of runtime. Point 4 is so small that I almost feel bad talking about it, but there's this insufferable moment where this woman who's established to be evil because we see her looking in a mirror, and vanity is the worst thing that a woman can have, and she comments about how she's getting really old and is still not married because she's a whopping 23 years old. And I hate it. The show, if it had wanted to say something about the devaluing of women with age. Maybe it could have cast a love interest for Inspector Orlando Bloom who is equally haggard, or who looks like they're also 50. But they cast like a beautiful woman, a beautiful young looking woman. They could have cast somebody who looks a little bit older to be the protagonist, or the unmarried woman. But instead, they cast very thin, very traditional looking, very traditionally beautiful looking women in all of the leading roles, and they just have one very beautiful, very young looking woman complaining about her age. It is really, really out of touch. So that's sort of all I had to say about Carnival Row. I think it was really long-winded for the few things I had to say. But I think that the show is sort of emblematic of a bigger pattern that I've been seeing of sort of corporate activism. And the thing about that is that when you're trying to write about a nuanced topic that you don't know that much about, it can be really harmful and alienating to both the people who are facing legitimate oppression and the oppressors themselves. When you depict your villain as a cartoonishly bad person who's evil for no reason and who's just out committing violence in the streets, when you depict your masses, your majority, as people who are okay with slurs being thrown around and openly racist and bigoted and violent, just unapologetically and with no even poor justification for it, you allow people who are oppressive in a more nuanced way to point to that and say, hey, that's what racism is. That's what bigotry is. And that's not me. And the last thing you want is for your show to be the justification for somebody continuing to be a bad person. If your villains don't have nuance, if there's no sense of realism to them, all you're doing is allowing people who are the villains in our world to excuse their own behavior. And that's just not gonna fly.